Hello developers, welcome to day 9 of the 30 days of JavaScript challenge. Today presents another opportunity for us to tackle challenges and further enhance our understanding of JavaScript concepts. Let's dive in and maximize our learning journey. Today's challenge says, write a function called argumentsLength that returns the count of arguments passed to it. And there's some examples there. So example 1 said, if only 5 is passed, the output should be 1 because there's only one argument that is passed. Example 2 says when you pass an empty object, null, and the string 3, the output should be 3. That is because there are 3 items that are passed in the function. So there are 2 examples. Then the constraints are the arguments args is a valid JSON array which has the length ranging between 0 and 100. So that is today's challenge. Let us first learn some key concepts before we solve it. The first key concept that we'll learn is the spread operator. And the spread operator is represented by these 3 dots here, as you can see. And it was introduced in the ES6 syntax. And the spread operator allows an iterable, like an array or a string, to be expanded into individual elements. So let us look at some examples and use cases of this spread operator. So the first use case of spread operator is to copy elements. So let's say I have an array here. I'll call it array 1. And I'll assign it some random numbers like that. Then let's say I want to copy this array into another array. I can use the spread operator to do exactly that. So I can create a new array here. I'll call it copied array. And I'll spread this first array like that. So now each element of this first array will be placed in this other array. So the copied array will contain elements of the array 1. So I can log that to confirm. So I can log copied array. Then I can run this code for us to confirm that. And you can see indeed the copied array contains the same elements as the original array. The second use case of this spread operator is to combine elements. To combine arrays, not elements, combine arrays. Let's say I have 2 arrays, like let's say I have array 1, then I can duplicate that and create another array 2. Then I can change these values of array 2 like that, just random values, any number, not must be the same length, any number of items. So if I want to create a hybrid array that combines these 2 arrays, so let me just create that. Let me call it combined array. Combined array. I can use the spread operator to spread this first array and the second array into one array like this. So I'll spread the first array here, array 1. Then I'll put a comma. Then I spread the second array 2 like that. So this combined array will contain elements of both array 1 and array 2. So you can log that to confirm. Then let me comment this one so that my console should have only one log. So I can comment this log here. Then I run the code. So let me save it and run it again. So you can see my combined array contains elements of both array 1. So array 1 is here till here. This is array 1. Then this one is array 2. So my combined array contains elements of both array 1 and array 2. You can just visualize it as taking these elements of array 1 here. This is the visualization, taking those elements and placing them here. Then you can see there's this comma. Then take these other elements and place them there like that. So you can just put them in any order. So I'll just undo. So if I want array 2 to come first, I'll start with array 2, then array 1 and so on, depending on which order you want. And the other use case of this spread operator is in function arguments. Function arguments. So let's say I have a function add that adds some numbers. Let's say it adds 2 numbers, A and B. Then I return the sum of A and B like that. So this function expects some numbers A and B. But just let's say we have an array. Let's say you have this array. So I can let me just create another array. Let's say I have an array. I'll just call it array that has 3 and 4. It has two items, 3 and 4. So this function expects two numbers, 3 and 4. But as we have an array, let me just move it. Let me move it here so that you can see it clearly. So this function expects two numbers, but we have an array of two items, 3 and 4. So if you call this function add, if I call it with this array, it will not give me the expected results. But let us see first. Let us see what it will give us. So if I save this code and run it, you can see it gives us the same array, then 3, then 4 undefined. It gives us this 3, 4 and undefined. This is the initial log. I forgot to comment it. So it gives us 3, 4 and undefined. So it does not give us the expected results. As you expect here to be just a single number like 3 plus 4, 7. That's what you expect, but it gives us something that you don't expect. So for us to get the expected results, we can first spread this array using the spread operator. That will turn this array into individual elements, then pass those elements to the add function. Let me comment this so that it cannot disturb us in the console. So let me run this code. So you can see now if I spread the array, it now gives me the expected results, 7. So that is how we use the spread operator. The next concept that we learn is the rest parameters. And rest parameters are used to represent an indefinite number of arguments as an array within a function. And its syntax is these 3 dots, just like the spread operator. But let us see how the rest parameters differs from the spread operator. For example, if I have a function here, I'll just use the same function like the previous example that we did. So let's say I have a function that takes two numbers a and b, then it returns the sum of those two numbers. So it will return a plus b, like that. So we all know to call this function. I'll just say add, then I'll call it with some numbers, let's say 4 and 7. So if I log this, I expect this function to return the sum of 4 plus 7 because it expects two arguments, and those two arguments are the ones that I've passed to them. But what if I pass more than 2 arguments? For example, I pass 4 arguments instead of 2, like that. What will be the output of these results? So let me log the answers for us to see. So if I say console.log and save this code, then I run it. So if you pass 2 arguments, the extra arguments will be ignored. So this will still return 11. You can see here the output is still 11 because it considered only 4 and 7, because this function expects 2 arguments. So the rest of the arguments, that is 9 and 6, they were ignored. And that is where the power of rest parameters comes in, because we can have access to these extra parameters within a function using the rest parameters. So its syntax is the 3 dots. So I'll just put a comma, then I put the 3 dots, then I give them any name. I'll call them rest. And this one, it will be a rest parameter, and as you have seen, it will be used to represent indefinite number of arguments, but they'll be stored as an array. So you can just log, let me just log it here so that you can see it's an array. So if I log this rest, then let me remove this log here. Let me remove this other log here and save this code. So if I run this code now, I have called add with 4 arguments, and you can see this rest will be an array of 9 and 6. So these extra arguments will be stored in an array. So the power of rest is making our function flexible, meaning it can accept any number of arguments. Like this function here, add, will accept 2 or more arguments. So this rest is indefinite number of arguments can be stored here. And you have seen that here it's a list, and here it's an array. So in short, this rest parameter, it converts a list into an array. So that is the is the work of the rest parameter. So that is it with the rest parameter. The next property that we'll learn is the array length property. So this one is a built-in property that you can access to determine the size of an array. For example, if I have an array that has the values, those values 9, then to determine the size of this array, I can just call the length property on this array, like this array dot length. And if I log this one, so let me just log this. So if I log console.log, then run this code, you'll see it will return a number that is the size of that array. So let's wait for it. You can see it will return 4 because this array contains 4 elements. So that is how this length property work. And you can notice that we didn't do something like this because this one is not our method, it's a property. And we discussed the difference between methods and property. And we said that a properties are just attributes of an object that store data, and they provide information about the object state. So this length is just a property that provides information about this array's state. That means if you change this one like that, the value of this length will change. So if I run this code, it will be now 1, 2, 3, 4, it will be 5. So that is how this length property works. You can see it's 5. So that is how this length property works. Now that you know about the rest operator, the rest parameters, and the length property, we can now solve this challenge. So the challenge expected us to write a function called argumentsLength. So I'll just create a function. I'll call it that. So I'll say something like const. So I'll use the anonymous function syntax like that. So there is my function. Then this function should return the count of the arguments passed to it. So we don't know how many arguments will be passed to this function, but you have to return the length or the count of those arguments. So you can make use of the rest parameters because you saw that rest does not matter how many parameters, how many arguments you pass to this function. All of them will be stored in a single array. So for example, if I call this argument's length with, let's say, 2 parameters like that, or 3 parameters like that, all these 3 parameters will be passed here as an array. So you can just log those arguments like that so that you can see there'll be an array. So you can see in the terminal, let's just wait for it. It didn't run, so let me just run it again. So you can see in the terminal, it's an array of 5, 6, and 7 because those are the arguments that I passed. So we have this knowledge of the rest parameters. So first I'll store all the arguments passed in a rest parameters because you don't know how many they are. So I'll just do like that. Then since I know that this is an array and I want to get the number of these arguments, I can use the length property to determine the size of the array because the size of the array is equal to the number of elements in that array. So I'll do something like that dot length like that. Then I have to return this. So I'll return that. Now if I run this code, so since I passed 5, 6, and 7, I expect it to return 3. So let me run this code again. Let's see, it didn't run the first time. So let me run it again and see. So you can see it returned. Oh, I didn't log it. I'm running it. I have to log this one so that I can see it in the terminal. So I'll just log this. So let me console.log like that. Then I run it. So now you can see it's 3. And that is what the challenge expected us to do. We can test it with these 2 examples. So example 1, the argument was 5. So I can just test it with 5. Then example 2 it was, so I'll just duplicate this one. Then I can copy this example 2 here like that. Then I paste it here. I missed one curly braces like that. So I have to delete this one. Yeah, that way. So I use those 2 test cases. So if I run, the first test case will give me 1. Then the next test case should give me 3. And that is what I got. So that means that this challenge is solved. That is it for today's video, guys. See you in the next video. Peace out.